few disclaimers. Whilst we go through a number of tools you can use to mark fabrics, we recommend you test your methods on a scrap piece of fabric before you begin. The tools we use in this video are used from our experience and aren't meant to be an authority, and if you prefer other methods, then that's okay. Making marks on fabric is something we'll all have to do at some point. Whether it's to mark a buttonhole placement or to match up seams along the way, you'll want something to help you. It can feel daunting, particularly if it's on your final fabric, but there's no need to worry. Making marks on technical fabric is exactly the same as any other fabric. Some methods will work and some won't. So we've done some experimentation to help you out. Our general recommendations are only mark within the seam allowances if you can, and test any methods on scraps before you begin. If you're marking outside the seam allowances, test your method beforehand. Before you start searching for the perfect marker for the job, do some testing with what you already have first. Not only will it help you save some pennies, but you won't be waiting for the post to get on with your project.
So, what's available out there? There's the classic tailor's chalk triangle that comes in a number of colours. There's chalk pens. This one is like a technical pencil and can be sharpened. It also comes in lots of colours. There's also other markers which twist out. This one is water soluble. These all have created fine lines. There's air erasable pens. This one has a thicker nib. This next one is another air erasable but has a tip on the other end to erase the line, which is handy. There's friction erasable pens, which have a rubberized end to erase the mark, or they're often removable by an iron or heat. They also come in several colours. Note how some of the marking methods are more easily made. This one I have to work at making the mark, whereas chalk is fairly single pass to make the mark. There's the classic Sharpie, but of course that's more permanent. Then there's liquid chalk pens. They're normally iron erasable. On to the non-pen methods. You could use a small pin. There's a twisting hole punch, often associated with leather working, but has multiple tips for different sized holes. You apply the right size end and twist down, and it will twist and cut. Always use a cutting mat with this one. There's a tailor's awl, which punches a small hole into the fabric. Some alternative methods are to use small stickers from a stationery shop. Check that the adhesive doesn't make a mark. You can also use basting threads. When applying these methods to waterproof fabrics, check each method on the right and wrong side to see how they do. We will use the wrong side as it's more visible for the camera. The coating on the insides often react differently to the markers. For example, the air erasable markers can be more water-based and are easily rubbed off. The iron-off and chalk pens tend to stick around on the coatings better. On this laminated backed fabric, they tend to mark up well. However, the ripstop coated fabric struggle to make a mark or stay on the fabric. The chalk markers do much better on this type of fabric. Considerations for your project to help you pick which one's best. What colour do you need the mark to be? Similar colours will be harder to see and a contrast would be better. Do you need the mark to be temporary or permanent? If you need it to fade, then test them out on some scraps. If the mark is in the seam allowance, you could also use a more permanent method. How long do you need the mark to last? Will you have days, weeks or months for this project? Will the marks fade or risk becoming loose or coming out? The fabric punch works well on medium to heavy fabrics. The thinner fabrics tend to twist and some don't react well to the motion and make ragged holes. Stickers similarly may not stick well to some coatings, but masking tape could be a good alternative and you can write on those obviously. On the wrong side of soft shells there's often a thin fleece. The pile of this fleece can interfere with the cleanness of the line produced. You may have to press harder to achieve a good solid line. Depending on your fabric colour and the pen colour, there may also be bleeding through of the marker to the other side. On soft shells, stickers may not stay in place or could come off during construction. On the right side of the soft shell, the markers apply very well and the lines are sharp and clean. However, a word of warning that iron and air erasable markers can leave permanent marks in this fabric. If you can see, there are small white marks remaining even after cooled down. Each time an iron is passed over the area, these marks are visible. The air erasable pens also did not fade totally on this fabric for almost 4 weeks after application. Obviously, I was writing all over the fabric and it's likely you'll not be making such marks, but beware when you make a mark if outside of the seam allowance with air erasable and iron erasable pens. So, how do I apply these methods when working with technical fabrics? Here's one of our Grisdale gaiter pieces, which I'm cutting in one layer. I've weighted down the pattern piece and I'm tracing around using a chalk pen. Once I've finished, I remove the pattern piece and mark the notches. I then cut inside the chalk lines to ensure I've cut it out correctly, and this ensures the size is right and there's no marker residue.